Welcome, Zach from Silk Velvet. That just sounds sexy. I'm sorry, man. Silk Velvet. I'm sure we're going to get into how we got here today. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you taking time out to talk with me about Silk Velvet and what you're doing over there.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Joe.
So grateful. Thank you also for my latest mail call. I did get a chance to crack it open. It's delish. I have my thoughts on it. I want to see if it's what you were thinking. We'll come back
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that. Silk Velvet. How did we get here?
It's a long story, which I will give the abridged version of it. The first part was I, just like most everybody listening, just a massive bourbon fan. Started born and raised in the state of Kentucky. Bourbon's around everywhere we go around here. My wife and I would actually go visit distilleries and those anytime we had away from the kids. It would be anniversaries. I have a really good wife, so we'd spend anniversaries going and all that. One day, saw a job opening of this distillery in the city of Owensboro, which is the town right beside Henderson where I live. We had toured it about a year before for my wife's birthday. Didn't even know it existed before we toured it. This was fresh. This was 2018 because when we went, May of 2018, it had been up a couple of years, but really hadn't heard about it. When we went, we saw this beautiful facility that had obviously been there for forever. Still had warehouse B, had half the rick house had fallen and was still in collapse. You could tell it was a resurrection that was happening. It was in the very early stages. When I saw this job opening pop up for it, called my wife that day and was like, I'm going to look to change careers and kind of go with this. Had her full support, never thinking that it actually happened. Lucky enough, I had a couple interviews, got interviewed, got to sit down with Jacob and the team as well. They liked me enough to bring me on. That was July of 2019. My very first day, we had a rick house collapse at the facility. To kind of tell you the state of where the distillery was at that time, probably didn't have the biggest reputation out at the time. What I found when I got in was this amazing young team of just people that were passionate and eager to make their name in the bourbon industry. I met a guy named Jacob Call, who is, in my eyes, one of the best, greatest distillers of his generation. Got to be a part of this team called OZ Tyler. Got to do a lot of fun stuff with that. Got to rename the distillery back to the Green River Distilling Company, a name that it had carried pre-1930s. Got to release the Green River Bourbon to the world. I actually was able to be a part of the very first pick to carry the Green River name, along with Jacob and a couple other guys. Really got to do some real fun stuff in there. It was 2020 in COVID. We were all stuck and bored. My father found this old memorabilia of this. He's a big antique collector. He told me one day, come out, I need to show you some of this stuff. I go out to the store, whatnot. He starts pulling out these old receipts, these old labels, these old bottles. And it was this brand called Silk Velvet Whiskey from our hometown, Henderson. Beautiful baby blue, gold foil. Basically, the way you see the package today is how they had it back in the 1900s.
Wow.
We're sitting there. Dad's, he's one of those guys that idea man all the time. He's like, we need to bring this back. We need to bring this back. I was like, oh, this is cool. That's an undertaking. Went home though, and this label and this story and all these things he's shown just kept replaying in the head. So started digging into the story and the history of it. It was just incredible. We can go into it. Started becoming, this would be a cool idea to this. We have to do this. This was put in our lap for a reason. This was showed to us. We have all the resources that we need being at the distillery. My brother, who's a big part of this, has been in distribution on the distribution side for the last 15 years. It started to become an obligation of it. It was a long journey from 2020. We filed for it in 2020, finally released in December of 2024. As you can imagine, there was a lot that happened in between that. It's been a fun journey so far.
When you say filed for it, are you referring to the DSP or
No, for the trademark of the actual brand. The brand started by a guy named Colonel A.S. Winstead. We're talking 1860s right now. He met a lady named America Worsham. Her family was an actual distilling family. He found it fascinating, started kind of learning from the in-laws. He started getting really good at distilling once he started learning it. He got so good at it that one day he decided he was going to leave the family business and actually go start his own distillery. In 1880, he starts this distillery that is state of the art. We have records of every single piece of equipment, everything that he had. To show you the scale of it, his very first order was for 5,000 barrels to New York. And we're talking 1880. It took him 3 months to run it. So I can kind of give you the scale of it. But
Those were horse
uh
and buggies taking those
yeah,
up
this
there.
is train, hopefully the guys on horses aren't, robbing the train on the way up, all that good stuff. So we're also talking the Industrial Revolution. So this is a really, critical time in American history. Industry is changing and everything else. So they were in the forefront of all this change. And it was they must have been really good at marketing or BS or whatnot. I don't know back then, but the story is the colonel, he tasted his very first batch off the new still at the distillery, and he said, "Man, that is smooth as silk." And it's the name Silk Velvet Whiskey is what come up. So
Silk, okay.
yeah, they started they got really good at it. They started spreading, and the very first Silk Velvet would have been in little jugs like this. And so this is one of
Wow.
our
Okay.
pieces that we've got here. But, he would have distributed it that. But over time, they started developing, the story, the marketing, and all that good stuff. And they ended up coming out with this baby blue label with this gold foil. And it looks a lot like what we have today. The type font and the colors, thing you see all the way even down to the whiskey is exactly how it was back in thinking 1890 1900 is when they went from the jugs. They would have went over to bottles. It really looked more, this is an actual original label here that we're
Wow.
looking at right now.
Okay.
So as you can see, we didn't go too far off from it.
No. Okay.
It got so big during that time, they started to go basically national. Of course, national to us would be you can go find in your liquor store or restaurant or wherever all over the country. A little bit different back then. You'd have to go to your general store and go look at the catalog and actually mail order the whiskey to where you were. But we got advertisements all over the country for this. And they even had old Silk Velvet 15-year, some of these. So yeah, it just he brought his two sons into it, and then kind of built it up as that. Colonel got in bad health in the early 1900s. EW, his son, took it over and really blew it up from there. And then the 1917 um, started. The Prohibition movement had started. 1917, Congress passed to where you couldn't do the mail order stuff anymore. So that really hurt the brand and the distillery, really ate at a lot of the revenue sources they had. And then, 1919 Prohibition really starts to gear up and get enacted. And Colonel passed away right before that, and he actually passed away a couple months after Prohibition hit.
Wow.
So brand, once Prohibition was finally lifted, there was really nobody there from the Winsteads to really pick it up. So the brand was actually dormant for over 100 years before we filed for it there in 2020 to get the trademark. There is a connection, though. The other part of it is his family, who was distilling, who he learned from. They probably didn't take it too kindly that he left to start his own distillery and almost compete against them. Right? Actually, started the groundwork and the legs in 1881. A year later, would have end up eventually becoming the Peerless Distilling Company. So in Henderson, you had Silk Velvet and the Winsteads, and then basically the in-laws and the Worshams. Of course, then they sold to a guy named Henry Craver that really built Peerless up as well back in 1889. So got a bunch of history to it. Actually, the Winstead Distillery was the bigger of the two even back then. So events happened with the passing and everything else. So was really finding all those old memorabilia, really brought it back to our forefront to really start bringing it back. So
That's a hell of a story, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a history buff, so I appreciate the in-depth history lesson that you just gave me there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's kind of what made us fall in love. Dad being a big antique guy, he was always teaching us the history stuff growing up. And then also being a part of the old distillery at Green River. You're talking DSPKY10, getting to see the bourbon history of that distillery and that brand. And as much as we love bourbon, we love the history of it as well.
Absolutely. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at two bottles in front of me. They both have a mash bill of 75-21-4.
Uh-huh.
Both are char 4. Is barrel number 10. The other is barrel number 33. One's 6 years old and one's 7 years old. What's the difference in the two?
Yeah, the two bottles that you've got right now are similar yet different. So one of the things, the old distillery, it was a contract distillery. So we would do stuff for everybody, a lot of people. So almost 40 different mash bills ran through there. So one of the things that we're fortunate enough to know where a lot of those barrels went and kind of to a lot of the stuff that we made back then. So what we're doing with Silk Velvet is we're finding those barrels. Like I say, we're probably the only ones sourcing from ourselves almost, right? We are an NDP. We have direct connection to everything that we're releasing. A lot of those barrels have done some interesting stuff. So we had barrels, maybe we changed the yeast on, proofs are different chars, different cooperages, sitting in different houses, maybe even aged in different locations.
Yeah.
So the first barrel you talked about is one of our early barrels. That would have been one probably, I would say you almost probably picked it up around KBF or so.
Right. I didn't make it to KBF, and
Okay.
I was so distraught. Or one of my buddies says I had FOMO. Right.
Uh-huh.
So as soon as I said, you know what, I got to get my hands on this. I think that your relationship with Sealbox is the reason that I was able to get that immediately. So,
Nice.
you know, and I'm not going to lie to you, the proof point captivated me.
Mm.
Right. There was that whole, sticker shock thing. I saw 107. I'm going, oh, man, I got to try this. Right. It was a very popular proof
Yes.
point for a lot of bourbon enthusiasts. So I saw it. I was still fairly new to sour mash. I had tried Michter sour mash and a few others,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was, really kind of advancing in my journey with bourbon and learning more about mash bills and the distillation process and the difference between pot still and column still, right? What sour mash meant. So I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. And I'll tell you, that one made me a believer. So
That early barrel there. So that is a standard, what we call our standard bourbon over there. 70-21-9. So 70 corn, 21 rye, 9% malted barley. We also ran a real big one, 13-9. And so those were kind of what we call our standards, right? Now at the new distillery, the main stuff we run. So
did
this
you
is
say
a little
78?
70, 21-9, 13-9.
Yeah, okay. I thought I heard 78. I'm like, wait a
Yep,
minute.
yep.
Did you say
So
78?
so that's also a famous mash bill out of another distillery, a real big one. But learn Jacobs, so this, I'm also ADD, so I will fly every
okay.
which way on this.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Undiagnosed. So it's all
There
good.
we go.
It's all good.
I always view it as a good thing, but can make me ping pong. So keep
It's
me
okay.
on track. But with the two, so when Jacob was resurrecting, the OZ Tyler distillery, his dad came and helped. And I told you he under Booker No. So once they got everything kind of, they all looked at each other and said, well, what are we going to run first? And, so Jacob's dad was like, well, running 78-13-9. That's what I know. And the very first mash bill that ever actually came out of there was at 78-13-9. It's different from the 70. I think it tastes different from the 78-13-9 that we all know coming out of. But Jacob's dad, after they got everything functioning, everything was running very well. Jacob's dad was like, okay, job here is done. I'm going back to Florida. And then as soon as he was on the road, Jacob looks at everybody and goes, okay, ready to rock and roll. We're going to be running 70-21-9 from now on. So as soon as his dad left, they completely changed the mash bill. But those were kind of the standard mash bills that we ran out of that. Actually used both of those mash bills in our small batch select that we released at KBF last year. So that is a blend of those two. But the blue label we've been releasing out, we're using a 75-21-4, which is another mash bill that we ran out of there. Another famous mash bill out of a different distillery out of Indiana. So, again, it was a contract distillery. So, when you're contracting out, you start doing kind of what the big guys do, and then you venture out from that. But we didn't run a lot of this 75-21-4 out of there. So these are kind of mash bills for it. There's still a little bit on that high rye side. Used a little different yeast on these. So on barrel 10 that you've got, the yeast strain is completely different from the other barrel that you have. That one's going to get a little more orange peel, burnt orange peel, more fruit. Likes to call them juicy fruit. You get out
on
of
barrel
that.
10?
On barrel 10, yeah.
Tell you, I got thoughts on this barrel 33 and fruit. And I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I would say that leans more into the orange, the citrus, that type of stuff on the earlier barrels. Barrel 33, completely different. So barrel 33, those are from a lot. So what we do is we go find these interesting ones, and we go through these lots until we feel like we've exhausted them. And then we go find other things that we think are interesting, taste well. Still on the fruit forward side, with a name like Silk Velvet too, you can't have something that's real heavy ethanol that's going to just burn the crap out of you. And
Right.
Silk. And even on barrel 33, I mean, I don't know if you've told the proof on that yet, but
I did not tell the proof on that, but do a little show and tell. They probably can't see it, but that's 140 proof.
So I've had quite a few hazmat releases that have come out. I mean, we've had quite a few 140s, a few 150s in there, and even 161 in there at one point. So I will say we're not proof chasers. We love barrel proof whiskey, but I also love mid proof.
Yeah, it's
That's
the flavor.
why we release
You're
the
chasing the
107.
flavor, not the
Chasing the
proof.
flavor, and it happens to be hazmat. I mean, that's cool. It's not a. I would, I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I don't think even that drinks like a hazmat.
I'll tell you this: it doesn't drink like 140 proof. If I had this in a blind, I would never say it's 140 proof. But I'll tell you what it does for me. So I don't know if you know this, but I own food trucks. I don't know if we talked about that or not, but I own Smoky Joe Barbecue here in Michigan. So
Nice.
I started out in competition barbecue some years ago in 2016. Actually, it's 10 years is when it started for me. I did my first competition, and I was a dark horse in that race. I actually won the largest amateur rib cook-off in the state of Michigan.
Well,
Kind of took off from there. So I got into barbecue. I got stuff on the smoker right now, actually, right outside here. Got some pork butts on and some chicken tomorrow. So it's a love of mine, right? Hence the Bourbon Pitmaster.
yeah,
For me, I like being able to pull out notes in whiskey that are familiar to me because of smoked meats and things related to food. Tell you, when I nose this, I'm going, man, that's fruity, but it's a dark fruit, stone fruit, not the
Yep.
fruit like you get on the 107 proof. It's darker. It's much darker, deeper. And then when I taste it, I go, it reminds me of, but like a raspberry compote. It's almost like taking raspberries and putting them in a pan and letting them reduce down. Am I close?
No, you're spot on. You're spot on. I think that's what drew me to these the most. That raspberry note that are on this lot in particular, just found just fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not I mean, you get red fruits, you get the cherries and things like that on normal, but the raspberry notes on these have just been so fun. And then, actually, I'd love to do it. I pulled a bottle of that 140. I have not even had one open yet. So I'm going to
But it's
join
not
you.
just any raspberry. Again, it's like
Yeah.
that raspberry compote. It's like you're taking that raspberry and you're putting a little heat to it.
Mhm.
You put heat to things that kind of blossom, right? Kind
Yeah.
of just open up and release all the goodness that's inside. And that's what I'm getting from this, right? All the sugars and everything is just kind of oozing out. And it's just because it's kind of, man, it's a lot going on, but I love it.
It's a barrels. I'll tell you the story on these a little bit. So, like I told you, the barrel 10, little different yeast, little different. So, the barrel 33, a little bit older, but whole different story on them. So these were actually we made them in Owensboro. These were aged a couple of years in Owensboro, but these were actually sent down to Texas for about 3 years. And then these were brought back. I think I didn't tell you, left Green, we got bought out. We were Green River by the Bardstown Bourbon Company, 22, about 4 or 5 months after we released the Green River. And so I stuck around with Bardstown for about a year, but I knew I was going to leave. Had decided he didn't want to stick around. He was going to start his own distillery. So I stuck around at BBC Green River, but I knew in my heart where I wanted to be, and joined with a lot of the original team of OZ Tyler, and joined Jacob at Western Kentucky Distilling Company, which is about 30 minutes south. So barrels in Texas a couple years, made in Owensboro 2 years, in Texas 3 years or so. And then these were brought back to Kentucky, and we brought them back to Western Kentucky Distilling Company to finish aging on it. So I think the bones of Kentucky to start that aging process,
Yeah.
obviously you got to start with good product right off the bat, right? Got that kind of rounded out or started in, and then that Texas heat really did a thing to it. Shot the proofs up on these lots massively, but did this thing. I'm thinking a lot of that raspberry. Texas really had a good influence on these lots. I think also we brought them back to Kentucky and aging them, and the Kentucky kept rounded them out
Yeah.
to where no, it's got that Texas,
So you left that Texas funk in Texas, is what you're saying.
yeah, there's a little bit of Texas funk in there, but the Kentucky, I think, helped bring it back to kind of smooth it out. And it's
Yeah.
just the climate. So nothing against anything but the climates are completely different. Down in Texas, you don't have that humidity we do especially where we're at here in Western Kentucky. Just kind of, so these are just so unique to me. Just the way they were aged and everything else. And that's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find these barrels that we had that have these cool that are different from what we could run 70, 21, 9, standard stuff that we did, and put a label on it and call it a day. But like I told you, I started in this as a bourbon fan and as a bourbon lover. So I'm trying to find, I've got the resources, the connections to kind of go find those barrels that have those fun stories and off profile to what you would normally associate with where we're getting our stuff from. So, man, and are so the viscosity on there sticks around. You can chew on it for a
Yeah.
while. You really feel it in the front and the mid palate, but once it hits the back, it's still that silk velvety. It's that smoothness to what even at these proof points, they're just so approachable for where they're at.
Which is key for me. I mean, you brought a good point about folks who chase proof, right? Chasing proof is one thing. I chase flavor. Now, if I can get flavor in on high proof, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
double win for me,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That's
So
not bad.
that's
Yeah.
a double win. And interesting because I'll be honest with you, you see that I'm about almost halfway through the 107, getting close, right? Changed on me. I
Mhm.
don't know if it's the oxidation had anything to do with it, and now that it's had an opportunity to, come down some, but it changed versus this, where I've only had one pour or so out of it, right? But I surprisingly, even as a neck pour, it was approachable.
Mhm.
It wasn't
Yep.
overwhelming.
And I just took, you saw me, I just opened the bottle. Very first, I've let it kind of open up for the last 5 minutes or so, but getting everything right in it's a roller coaster on the tongue, man. It's
Yeah, it's a
like,
lot
that
going on.
first and mid palate, it even changes in the mouth once you've taken a drink. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're trying to find is those barrels that have that complexity. We've all sat down with one that's kind of a one note wonder and those type of things, or maybe thin or whatnot. And, you enjoy them, but you're not sitting there thinking about them, or these put ourselves in. Once you take a drink, you can sit there and you don't even touch it for the next 10 minutes, and you're still thinking of it. It's still changing and you a journey
Yeah,
without even.
just took a swig there, and it's actually changing as you're talking. And I'll tell you what I'm getting now that I wasn't getting before. I'm starting to get cinnamon.
Mm. The oak notes, the cinnamon notes. I mean, your classic bourbon notes are kind of in there, but it's that stone fruit, that
Yeah. Oh yeah.
raspberry that you're getting in that just kind of gives it just a twist on it that I just think are phenomenal. And I mean, even the color on these, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it's
That's
insane
sexy.
now. Yeah, I've had a really fun time with this lot, and there's going to be a lot more releases coming out of this lot. We've had a ton of barrel groups that have come in. We'll have some at KBF and those things, but
Well, I've
uh,
already told you to sign me up. So
nice.
we're doing a pick. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually have a few folks here in Michigan that want to do picks, a private group as well as a store, but the private groups may be easier than the stores right now. You know how that goes,
Yeah, yeah.
distribution. So
Mhm.
I'm excited, man. I can't wait. By the way, these corks are really interesting for one. They're old school. And I wanted to ask you, are these the original style corks?
No. So it's a fun story. So I told you we filed for it in 2020, and we started working on it immediately. It started taking design elements from the original, but we wanted to be as wanted to honor the past. So one of the things the Winsteads did, I mean, they were so ahead of their time on the way they marketed and the packaging and everything else. But the original actual packaging, and I've got that at the distillery. But the original packaging, think of like a Jack Daniel's Jim Beam bottle. That's what the original packaging looked like with that baby blue wrapped in. And I tried and tried and tried to make it almost exactly like what it used to look like. And for years, I kept thinking, well, the label, it's this, it's that. And of course, outside factors, the buyout of Green River, this whole influx. I didn't know how it would, work with BBC if I was going to be able to do anything. And then it was really going out to Western Kentucky in 23 that I was able to really start to really get it off the ground. So worked on it though that whole time. But it was finding this little jug that really changed it for us. So I couldn't make it work in what we call the Kentucky bottle, the kind of that Jim Beam Jack Daniels. But this is kind of an homage to both. So not only do we have the label from the square bottles and everything else, but the packaging of the actual bottle, I mean, they're almost identical shape. This one's a little more tapered, but even down to where the cork looks
Mm-hmm.
on to the very top of what you would have on this. So though it's not the original cork, though I do have a bottle from we believe 1916. It was a bottled and bond version. So we have the original. I mean, one day I'll get a needle down in it and we'll extract
Okay.
and all that good stuff. But so it is a little bit of changes to it, but for the most part, we tried to make everything as close to the original as possible.
So what's next on the horizon? I got a 6 year and I got a 7 year here.
Mhm.
We're going to get
Actually,
better and older, right?
what I was doing today is pulling samples out of the new lots that we just pulled. So, forward on the new lots that we're doing, 8.5 year is what these are currently. These are more towards kind of the profile that you would on that barrel 10, but and more on the citrus, that juicy fruit bubblegum. If you liked it and loved it at KBF, those that got to try us back then, you'll really love the new lots as well. So these are just we want to kind of keep changing it up. We don't want to hey, I bought a bottle of Silk Velvet. That was good. That was great. Whatever. I've had it. I've experienced it. One of the reasons why we do single barrels is because we want to have fun. We want to find that really fun stuff that's going to make you want to keep coming back for one, but two, to share those fun barrels that
Yeah,
we've
it's
got.
unique. You know,
It's unique. In
it's
time you purchase a bottle, every time you see a different barrel number on there, it's going to be one we hope they're all going to be great because Jacob and I both taste every single barrel before we put it in a bottle. So if it doesn't match our standards, not to say that we've got the best palate in the world, but as long as we enjoy it, we hope other people will enjoy it as well. But we'll kind of keep going back and forth, but it's just to keep things fresh, right? Back to us and try us and, kind of see what we're at now. But that's the most fun part of my job is finding these new barrels and these. And I didn't pull a ton of samples today, but my gosh, if what I pulled today is in indication of the lot we're about to pick from, I think people are going to really enjoy these.
All right, I got
So
one last question for you, Zach,
yeah,
before
yeah.
we get out of here. You make great bourbon. Is rye in your future?
So I got word today on some things coming to me, but I've always told Jacob that he makes some of the best damn rye. He's a great, he makes great bourbon, but the rye that he makes is actually phenomenal.
Now, I've had
So
OZ Tyler rye.
mm,
I have one from Short Barrel that's pretty damn good.
yeah. Yeah, I wasn't a rye guy when I started in at the distillery. I'm like most people, I love bourbon, but I really hadn't explored a ton
Yeah,
of.
it had to grow on me too, so I get it.
Yeah, ones you've had maybe weren't the best ryes. Not an easy thing to distill. It gums up. It's not a. You got to really know what you're doing with the ryes. So at the distillery and starting to see kind of what he was doing and everything else, it eventually turned me into a rye guy, and it didn't take very long. So we'll have a 6-7 year 95.5 107 proof that we're going to be releasing,
Mm.
and as long as everything goes right, it'll be Kentucky Bourbon Festival this year. So
Well,
uh,
unfortunately, I can't make it this year. It always falls on my wedding anniversary, by
I
the way.
understand that.
So,
It's 2 weeks after, so I just get lucky. And they never move the date on us.
yeah, keep me in mind for that.
We have it. We're going to get it. That's just where we're going to launch it. So we'll get it out to our partners. Those type of things. We'll follow us on socials and all that good stuff, and we'll make a big announcement of where you can
Absolutely.
find it. So that's the
Absolutely.
good part about partners like Silbach and things. We are in states. We're new-ish. We are about a year and a half, getting close to 2 years now in this. So I keep thinking we're new, but we're starting to get a little bit more established. So we're expanding in, but the seal box and things, we can ship to 47 states now. So if you can't find us in retail, we can at least get it to your door.
Okay. We definitely got to meet in person. I'm
Heck yeah.
looking forward to that. I'm actually heading to Cincinnati and Kentucky tomorrow, but I'm just going right across the border, make a stop
Nice.
to the bridge there. But got to make my way down to you. Me on the books. Going to do a pick real soon.
Nice.
Super excited for that. And
You might have to bring some barbecue down too.
I
So,
can do that.
because I know,
I can do
Western
that.
Kentucky is a barbecue for us. We
Yeah.
pride ourselves, and so I'm alone. We call it bluegrass bourbon and barbecue. That's
Okay.
our three staples. So, put you in some spots, see if you like it. But love to taste, what you got
Absolutely. I'm,
going
I'm
up
a
there.
chameleon. So I tell you, Michigan doesn't have its own distinct style of barbecue.
Mm, yeah.
But for me, my dad and my folks are from, so
Okay.
lean towards Kansas City when it comes to barbecue. Burnt ends is one of my favorite things. But I do it all. I do pulled pork. We do Texas brisket. I've even been dabbling in tri-tip, which is more of
Okay.
a Californian thing and out west.
We do
You
a
know,
lot of mutton around here, and
really.
that's a big one for us. Mutton. Hmm.
That's interesting. My wife is Jamaican, so that's a whole nother conversation there
Okay.
because that's
Yeah. Yeah.
a big thing in Jamaican cuisine, is
They,
mutton and goat and such. So
Yeah, it's delicious. And then I guess it's barbecue chip. The chip parts of I guess is it kind of like I love barbecue, but I'm not an expert in barbecue.
it's all
So
good.
that's it.
It's
Yeah,
all
but
good.
barbecue chip and then the mutton. That's of
Yeah,
course pork and burn ends and things like that too. But get you some mutton when you're down.
sounds good, man. We'll have to do this again real soon. I
Heck
appreciate your
yeah,
time and all the work that you're putting into your craft. It's evident. Keep up the great work, man, and we'll talk real soon. Look
yeah.
forward to that.
Well,
So,
Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Like I said, it was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I can't wait for you to come down. So,
absolutely. Until then, cheers.
yeah, cheers, guys.